Minister of Development Cooperation, Caroline Gennez, on behalf of the Belgian presidency of the Council. Ultimately, in the beginning, it was foreseen that HRVP would inform you on the discussions of the informal meeting. But right now, since after Commissioner General of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, will join us because he has to leave very early, so we will start by a press conference on Gaza, on the situation in Gaza.
No Spanish translation?
Do we have a Spanish translation? No.
No. Okay.
So, HRVP, you have the floor.
We have been talking about other things before discussing on the situation in Gaza and hosting Mr. Lazzarini. Welcome. We have been reviewing the midterms of the financial perspective from the point of view of development assistance. It has been a long discussion about how to better use our tools in a multipolar and multi-crisis world, and in particular, our support to Ukraine. We celebrated the 50 billion euros approved by the European Union Council, which will cover the immediate budgetary needs of Ukraine, which apart from winning the war and fighting the war, has to win the peace. And to win the peace, they have to continue paying salaries, paying pensions, provide public services, to do reforms in a very complex and challenging environment, as I myself could witness on my trip to Ukraine last week. And then we went into the situation in the Middle East, where alarming news are coming about the foreseen attack of the Israeli army against the south part of Gaza, where a lot of people, the concrete figures, Mr. Lazzarini knows better than I, but we talk about hundreds of thousands of people are being pushed against the Egyptian border. We had an exchange with the Commissioner General of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, and we agreed, I think that we agreed on the absolute need to contribute to the work of UNRWA on protecting civilians. Protecting civilians has been the work of UNRWA for many years, since 1949, when it was created to support the Palestinian refugees. Unhappily, many years later, UNRWA has still to take care of millions of Palestinian refugees, not only in Gaza, but in many other countries, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in the West Bank itself. Currently, I can say, correct me, Philippe, if I am wrong, more than 2 million people depend on your support, depend critically on your support, only in Gaza. In Gaza, only 700 schools serve 500,000 of young people, 500,000 children. There are 140 health facilities that provide health assistance to 7 million people a year. These figures are impressive. This is only in Gaza. But let's go to Lebanon. You will see how many Palestinian refugees that cannot work depend critically on the support provided by UNRWA. The ministers has welcomed the swift and decisive measures taken by Commissioner General and by the United Nations Secretary General to the allegations. I'm saying allegations. An allegation has to be proved. But immediately you took decisions about some members, 13 out of 30,000 staff allegedly being involved in the 7 October terrorist attacks. A thorough investigation and a comprehensive review, an independent audit has been launched. It will be implemented in full transparency and cooperation with donors, and in particular with us, which are the most important donors, the European Union member states and the European Union Commission. And today the Commissioner General has once again given us the assurances that the United Nations is giving to this issue all the importance it deserves, and it will ensure individual accountability. And I am saying individual accountability, not collective punishment. To discontinue the support to UNRWA would mean the interruption of vital services to millions of people in need and a greater humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, which has to be avoided, not only because it is a humanitarian imperative, but also because it would have dangerous repercussions on regional stability and would affect the Europeans too. But let's act just by humanitarian reasons. Don't forget that UNRWA provides assistance in Jordan, 2 million. 2 million in Jordan. In Syria, 500,000. In Lebanon, another 500,000. And on the West Bank, under great pressure, almost another 1,000,000, 900,000. If this agency disappears, this will have a devastating effect on 5.6 million people. They are stateless because there is not a Palestinian state. And we could agree that the existence of UNRWA 75 years after it was created, it's something deplorable, but it's the responsibility of the international community, not the UNRWA workers. And there is only one way in which the agency can be dissolved. The agency should be dissolved when there is no more Palestinian refugee problem. If you cancel UNRWA, the refugee problem will still be there, but still worse. So let's work for a solution which makes possible not UNRWA continue working for the refugees from Palestine because the problem has been solved through the creation of two states, not by cancelling UNRWA and making the problem bigger. I think it's in everybody's interest, including the Europeans and including Israel people, to preserve the role of UNRWA. Certainly there are different approaches. Some member states have decided, very few have decided to suspend support to UNRWA, but others, by the contrary, not only they haven't decided to suspend it, but they have decided to increase it. You know, it's a divisive issue among the European Union, but I think that everybody agrees that the work of UNRWA is something that cannot be interrupted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Gennez, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Belgian presidency, I'd like to thank Mr. Lazzarini for his very detailed and complete answers. All member states put issues on the table, and I think it's also important that Mr. Lazzarini clearly shared the foreseen timeline of investigations. And there are many, and I think that's important, that the allegations are countered with investigations that focus on transparency, shared information by all actors. Because like the High Representative told us, well, Israel has made some allegations, but so far the reports haven't been shared, not with the donor countries, but apparently not with UNRWA itself either. Many of the member states stressed the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza and providing aid in a principled and unimpeded way to the civilians all over Gaza. That must remain our top priority. Many member states also stated there is no alternative for Gaza and that we must prevent funding gaps. The Belgian presidency welcomes the agreement on this point. The humanitarian imperative should remain the basis of our collective decisions. A lot of information and miscalculation is circulating at this very moment. I can testify that the Belgian Development Agency's building inside Gaza has been destroyed on the 31st of January. We asked for clarifications to the Israeli ambassador to Belgium, but so far we didn't get any information. So we call strongly upon all parties involved to be transparent and to provide all the necessary information needed also for all the investigations to come to terms with allegations. There was also agreement amongst the member states that full transparency is needed from all sides, from UNRWA of course, but as donor countries also from all parties. At this very moment, like the High Representative said, more than 1 million Palestinians are trapped in Rafah, facing an imminent attack from the Israeli army overground, ordered by the Prime Minister himself. These people have nowhere to go, and a full-scale offensive would lead to a humanitarian catastrophe and many, many more deaths, many, many more wounded. This announcement came within weeks after the International Court of Justice decision to impose provisional measures asking Israel to prevent the loss of civilian life and ensure that more humanitarian aid is delivered in Gaza through more accesses, not only through Rafah, Kerem Shalom, also through Erez. That's what we are calling for. The only thing what is certain is that this brutal violence must stop, that the hostages must be released immediately, that we call for a ceasefire, that the Belgian presidency will call upon the member states to step up their support for UN-coordinated humanitarian aid efforts so that we can fulfill our international duties under the provisional measures ordered by the ICJ. I'm strongly convinced that international rules-based order is at stake here, and I think we can't let people in a dire humanitarian situation down. And you know what? If we want to dissolve UNRWA, maybe Mr. Lazzarini wouldn't even care a bit today because he has a difficult job. If we want to resolve the agency, there's one very credible solution, and that's a two-state solution, so that basic services also in the Palestinian territories can be provided by a Palestinian state aside an Israeli state. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now you have the floor, Commissioner General Lazzarini.
Yeah, thank you, High Representative Borrell and Minister Gennez. In fact, I will have very little to add when it comes to Gaza, but just to let you know that indeed we started our discussion about the situation in Gaza. There is a deep sense of panic and anxiety regarding the prospect of an unfolding military operation also in Rafah. As we all know, the price the civilian population has paid is unspeakable. We talk about 5% of the population which has been either killed, either injured, or who is missing. More than 100,000 people, up to a population of 2 million, and this in only 4 months. We also know, based on what UNICEF says, 17,000 children are separated from the parents, no news about their parents, and we also know that the Gaza Strip has a pocket of acute food malnutrition. We talk about possible starvation, possible famine, especially in the north, where we have an estimate of 300,000 people and where we haven't been able to organize a convoy since the 23rd of January. At the same time, because of the pressure and the military offensive taking place right now, it's becoming more and more difficult to operate in Rafah itself. Yesterday, for the first time, the UN could not operate with a minimum of protection, which was the local police, and because we had no local police, our trucks, our convoys at the border have been looted and trucks have been vandalized by hundreds of young people. The last remaining, I would say, protection to keep a minimum of civil order, which was the local police, might not be functional anymore, since many of them have been killed over the last few days and are more and more reluctant to be seen in these convoys. So the coming days will tell us if yes or not we will be able to continue to operate in an extraordinary challenging environment. I also briefed the member this morning about the number of restrictions the agency is under now. Restriction most of the time that we hear through social media or through the media, but not necessarily directly. For example, we have a consignment of food for 1 million people for 1 month in Ashdod. Contractors have been instructed not to handle and move this food because it is for UNRWA. You have heard that the VAT taxes exemption has been lifted for UNRWA. You have heard that a local bank has decided to freeze the UNRWA account. You know already about the difficulties staff have about the visa, which are not granted anymore on a yearly basis, but only on a 1 or 2 months basis. And last but not least, there will be a bill which will be tabled this week at the Knesset, aimed at ending the UNRWA operation in Jerusalem, and the vote will take place this week. So this is a little bit the environment we are operating right now. I brief also the member today about the allegation, and I think, High Representative, you stress we talk about allegation. We have an investigation which is now carried on by the Office of Internal Oversight Services in New York, and we have asked and called for full cooperation from the Israeli authorities to share with the organization proof or indication or evidence about this horrible allegation. You might remember, and this was said, the day I have learned about this allegation, I have taken the exceptional decision to sack the 12 people based on allegation, not on proven evidence, and a number of people have questioned the absence of due diligence, but in reality, and they named it a reverse due diligence. Now we hope that the OIOS investigation will be completed in the near future. Besides that, we have also decided to initiate a review by external institute, Free Scandinavian Institute, under the chairmanship of former Foreign Minister of France, Catherine Corona, which will be looking at all the mechanism of risk management of the agencies on issues related to neutrality, which means on all the issues related to behavior of the staff, political affiliation, allegation regarding a tunnel, allegation regarding a weapon, all this kind of allegation. How does the agency respond to this? What are the preventive or awareness measures being put in place? And once an allegation is credible enough, how is this investigated, and how is this after that dealt with the agency, and what do we put in place to prevent the recurrence of this kind of situation? So this will be the task of this independent review. We hope that in 1 month we will have already preliminary observation to be shared with the agency, and by the 20th of April we should receive the final report, and as an agency we are committed to implement the recommendation of this review. I had also this morning discussion with members of the Commission about the EC contribution, 82 million euro, which is due at the end of February, beginning of March, in March sometimes. There have been few conditions or expectations which have been laid out that we have discussed. One of them is an audit, a pillar assessment, especially on the issue of recruitment. The second one is related on the reinforcement of internal oversight mechanism, and the third one being the vetting of the staff working with UNRWA. The discussion was very constructive. There is a mutual commitment to find ways to address them in order to make the release of this contribution possible. Now, I have a lot of questions about what does this pause and suspension mean. Collectively, the total amount being paused for the time being for 2024 amounts about $450 million, and we are now engaged with a number of a country to look at what are the expectations to allow the release. Obviously, many of them are keen, and I understand, to get also the feedback or the outcome of the ongoing review, but also of the investigation per se. Now, people are asking what will be the impact now, because you all know that there are a lot of calls in Israel for the dismantlement or termination of the UNRWA presence. What does it mean and what would it mean? So maybe a few points. One, on the acute humanitarian response, as you indicated, Minister Gennez, there is an expectation from the ICG that we increase our collective capacity to respond to the most pressing humanitarian needs. A collapse of UNRWA would certainly not contribute to this. In the contrary, we are the main humanitarian platform providing, in fact, support to any other operator to be present in Gaza. But beyond that, I truly believe that a decision of this nature would be extraordinarily short-sighted. Why? Maybe, in the short term, everyone comprehends that when there is an acute humanitarian organization, we have a humanitarian system, and the humanitarian system could step in. Might be difficult in the case of Gaza because of the extraordinary footprint that UNRWA has for the time being, and basically we would just put aside. But let's say that agencies or other partners can step in. What does it mean? It means the following, that we would deprive in the near future 500,000 children in the Gaza Strip, for example, to go back to education. We all know that the day in between being the transition period, bringing from the end of military hostilities to a day after, which would be the day when you have massive investment for the reconstruction, which requires also a political package, that during this period we will have to deal with 100,000 girls and boys deeply traumatized, and there will be a sense of urgency to bring them back into an education environment. The more we will wait, the more we will sow the seed for future hate and resentment, and this is certainly not a recipe to promote lasting peace and stability in the region. There is no administration emerging in the Gaza Strip which would be able to provide these services at scope for so many children, for example. And there is absolutely no other organization providing primary and secondary education at this scope. Why? Because the unicity of UNRWA has been to provide to one of the most destitute communities in the region public-like services, education, primary health, invest in human development, and as a High Representative said, until the day there is a state and until the day there is an entity where these activities can be properly handed over. I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that there is a lot of questions and very short time, so I would ask you to ask short questions. I will start by Nureddin, and please present yourself and your media before asking the question.
Nureddin Fridi from Arabian News Channel. I have a question to Mr. Lazzarini. You stopped the contract for 13 persons or 12 12 persons out of the 13,000 employees. Does that mean, Mr. Lazzarini, you are convinced on âme et conscience with the Israeli evidence presented to you until now? Because I understand also that you are asking Israel to provide you with the evidence. And do you think that the campaign against UNRWA is a direct result of the decision, or it has any relationship with the decision of the International Court of Justice? Thank you very much.
I will take another question so that we can, so I will, as many as possible. So Andrew.
Andrew Gray from Reuters. Just a clarification, Commissioner General. Do you expect the investigation, rather than the review, to be concluded in time for the EU to make an informed decision about whether to proceed with that next payment? In other words, do you expect it by the end of the month or the beginning of next month so that the EU can make an informed decision on whether to proceed?
And then a third one, Liz, here. Third, and then we will take, yes. We'll do 3 by 3. So that
very quickly, a follow-up to Andrew's question. Could you also tell us what the immediate funding need is in March? That means including the EU money, the US money, and all the supplementary money you're getting from those countries that are continuing to fund. Thanks.
So now you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. On the first question, it's an allegation. I have said that this allegation is so serious that it requires swift action. The swift action having been taken has not only been the sacking, but has also been the call for internal investigation directly called by the SG and directly led by New York. That basically was my firm intention. Not more than that. It's an allegation I am calling for, and I hope that the Israeli authority will cooperate with OIOS investigation team to provide evidence, but not only the government of Israel, but anyone else who has evidence to share with the investigation team. On the timeline, I don't know. This is an independent investigation. They will take the time they need to complete a proper and independent investigation. Is this related to the EU decision? Well, that's the Commission will answer this question, but the discussion I had this morning was more focusing on free condition or expectation that they have laid out until now, which are the audit, which is the reinforcement of our internal mechanism, and which is the issue related to the vetting of the staff. And sorry, there was also a question about the money. The Commission contribution is absolutely critical because it's $82 million expected beginning of March. If we would have had no pause or freeze of funding, our cash flow would have been good until the end of July. Our cash flow will suffer as from now, as from the month of March. It will be negative, expected negative 30 to 40 million in March, but then it will be significantly negative as from April, and basically just to cover salaries of 30,000 staff across the region, we need at minimum 60 million just per month to process the salaries. So that's a little bit the timeline. If you need more information, we can share more, but you know, it changes also all the time because it all depends on the nature of decision some of the donors have taken.
HRVP, you wanted to say something?
No, as you know, I am Vice President of the Commission. Maybe you're reminded. The Commission has never asked for the investigation to finish, but to be launched. Read the statement of the Commission. Read the statement of the Commission. We asked for the investigations, in particular the one on the audit and the screening, to be launched. Because we are clever enough to understand that this cannot be finished in 20 days. So to be launched means to be launched. To be finished means to be finished. And the statement of the Commission says clearly to be launched. And certainly it is something that member states will follow closely, because it's an important issue for our foreign policy.
Okay, we'll take 3 more questions. Mose? Here. Very short, please.
Yes, thank you. Musa Plot from Brussels Times. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Lazzarini, but also related to your other, as donors perhaps. These serious allegations seem to indicate that there is a dilemma of some kind for UNRWA and other, let's say, humanitarian organizations to operate in an area like the Gaza Strip, which is ruled by a terrorist organization, or as you call them, the de facto authorities, because of the risk of being, let's say, compromised or infiltrated even by that organization. And then I remember that High Representative Borrell said among your plan, remember those famous no's, 6 no's and yes, that there is no place for Hamas in Gaza the day after. The question now to Mr. Lazzarini is, do you agree with that statement, or do you have any other, let's say, idea how to operate in such an environment if Hamas is not removed from the power in the Gaza?
Thank you. Lauren?
Yes, High Representative, just on the what you said about the investigations being launched. You've asked for pillar assessments. There was one done a year ago, when you remember in October as well, when Commissioner Vaheli asked that there was an inspection of all the Palestinian funds. Well, UNRWA was looked at again there. It seems really political, and I'm just wondering, we know there are divisions among member states. It seems there are divisions within the Commission, or perhaps, Minister, you could tell us who are the countries that are making the biggest objection to moving forward on these funds that we all agree are quite desperately needed. Thank you.
And the lady in green, and then we'll take another turn of questions.
My name is Inge Franke from VRT Belgian Television. Commissioner General, a question. The Israeli government is asking today to UN agencies operating in Gaza to help with the evacuation of the Palestinians in the south. Can and will UNRWA assist with this?
Evacuation where, sorry?
Sorry?
Evacuation to Egypt?
I don't know. I'm just quoting the question of the Israeli government to help evacuate.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can answer these questions before another round.
Yes. On the first question, it's very well known that since 2005, Hamas took over power in Gaza. And since 2005, any activity taking place in Gaza is taking place in an environment which is and was under the authority of Hamas. Now, I just want to share something with you. I know that we know that the government of Israel or certain voices want the liquidation of UNRWA and in Gaza, and I told you what I believe might be the impact and might be a mistake in terms of collective peace and security effort in the region. We have been criticized quite a lot about our education, which is in fact using the curriculum of the Palestinian Authority. I have to tell you that a lot is extraordinarily good in this education. We are the only one having had a human rights curriculum for the last more than 10 years, at minimum. We are the only one who have reached gender equality. We are the only one really promoting critical thinking. Because of that, And because of the fact, for example, in summer we have summer camps where people can come to play sport, to do art, to do dancing, music, we have been constantly criticized by the Hamas and seen as a cultural danger for them. I believe that the presence like an organization like ours in this kind of environment has offered to the children a different prospect for a different kind of future. Unfortunately, that's not where we are today. And I think we all acknowledge the horror and the disaster in which we are in today. But this is basically what UNRWA can offer. When we had the summer camp last summer, there were 20,000 kids who went into the Hamas summer camp. We had 250 to 280,000 kids who registered in the UNRWA school. This is the alternative that UNRWA can offer in places like Gaza. I cannot really comment on a call through media by the Israeli government. I was unaware. It might have come while we were doing our meetings. So I don't know, but to tell you the truth, I have no idea what a safe place means in the Gaza Strip. I have been now 4 times. People have been just moved from one place to the other one. Each time they were told to go to a given place saying this will be a safer place, it has been proven that the place was not safe. So to go where, I don't know.
Do you mind if we take a last round of questions?
No.
I know that you...
No questions. We have Lazzarini here. Let's use this opportunity.
Rose from the National. Mr. Lazzarini, there were fresh allegations against UNRWA over the weekend that you answered, I think, on Twitter about Hamas having a headquarters under your tunnel, and you said maybe a new investigation is needed. It sounds like you're announcing new investigations all the time. Did you feel enough support today with conversations with EU ministers that they want you to survive? Because clearly Israel's not going to continue with their new accusations against you. You know, fresh accusations come up every few days at this point. Do you feel there's a will in the international community to support you and make sure that you'll continue surviving? And for Mr. Borrell, you said this morning when talking about US President Biden being worried about the Rafah operation that maybe more than words are needed, and you talked about weapons. Could you maybe clarify? It's very timely because the Dutch government made a decision this morning about F-35 exports. Thank you.
Rosie?
I even may try to answer the first question after Lazzarini.
Okay, Rosie.
Thank you very much. Rosie Burchard for DW. I have a question first for Minister Gennez. Last month you controversially warned Germany against being on the wrong side of history twice. You also said that Germany was being taken in by the Israeli government. You were heavily criticised by several Jewish groups and also by Germany. What was your message to your German colleague today? And then to the Commissioner General, you're trying to restore trust and to convince donors to resume payments. You sacking staff members hasn't worked. Do you think your own personal resignation could be a step toward restoring that trust? Is that something you'd consider? Thank you.
The lady in green? No, you don't want any more? So, okay.
Commissioner General Isabel da Silva from Euronews. I'd like to ask if you have a contingency plan to which operations you would reduce or stop altogether if these audits don't finish in time for you to have the funds. Will these activities be reduced only in Gaza but also in the other regions? And also in your visits to the Gulf states and other partners, are you getting money from other donors to compensate the one that has been suspended? If I may, for High Representative, regarding the weapons that you suggested during the doorstep, that maybe the US should revise the selling of weapons to Israel. Do you have any specific comments from Washington on that? Thank you.
And you.
Merci beaucoup, Andreas Lark, Télévision Suisse. Je vais poser ma question pour Monsieur Lazzarini en français. Des voix s'élèvent pour réclamer votre démission, pas seulement en Israël, mais même dans la politique suisse. Pensez-vous à démissionner, Monsieur Lazzarini?
Okay, now you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I mean, there have been twice. No, I have no intention to resign. We have one government calling for the resignation. We might have other voices, but I haven't heard any other government. And for the time being, as long I do believe we can continue to make a difference, I will continue to do this. Now, on the question of investigation. Well, in the discussion I had today with the minister, I reminded that since the beginning of the war, we had more than 200 incidents involving UN premises. Hundreds of people have been killed. Thousands have been injured. We vacated the north on the 12th of October, and since we have heard that many of our installations were either used by Hamas fighters or used by the Israeli army. I do believe, and here we talk about United Nations premises, places which were supposed to shelter people fleeing the conflict. Yes, I think that at the end of this war, we need an independent board of inquiry to look into all these allegations, whether we talk about a tunnel underneath, whether we talk about targeting or involuntary targeting of premises, or the use for military use of our premises. That's also something we collectively should be outraged by a blatant disregard of not only UN installation, but we have seen the same with hospitals, we have seen the same with other public, I would say, places, which normally should be protected by IHL. Was there another question that I forgot?
The contingency plan for when you stop having enough funds, which operations will stop?
You know, our mandate is to provide human development or education and primary health to Palestinian refugees across the region, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and in Gaza. We cannot say that Lebanon is more important than Syria, as vice versa. So all the activities, in fact, will be somehow impacted. So we are not talking about only Gaza, but we are also talking about the impact in neighboring country, and we also know how shaky the situation can be in some of the neighboring country. And this is the reason why I keep saying we are not just dealing with a technical issue. Far from that, consequences can go far beyond that and can also be of a political but also stability and security nature.
HRVP?
Look, my job is to try to unite member states. My job is not to blame and shame, saying, someone said, others agree, who is on the right side, who is on the wrong side. My job, a difficult one by the way, is to try to put all member states together in a common position. And I will not contribute to show up the divisions among us, which are quite clear. Quite clear, because when the moment comes to vote in the United Nations about the ceasefire, I think 17 or 18 voted in favor, 2 voted against, others abstained. So it's clear that there are different approaches, and about the funding of UNRWA, also there are different approaches, radically different. Some member states, I will not name them, said, I will increase my support. Another says, I cancel my support. Another says, I will not cancel it, but I will not launch new until clarification is being done. So I have to manage these polycentrical approaches among member states. But if I have to take the common ground, if I have to look at the majority feeling, I think that the majority clearly is understanding the fact that there is no alternative to support the Palestinian people than what we have in place and has been in place for 70 years or more with Hamas and without Hamas. So I cannot imagine a magic wand to say that tomorrow someone will come and provide the schools to have 1 million young people. We provide food to 7 million people. Come on. So we have to have on the other hand, it's true that the Israeli government, she doesn't hide his will of cancelling the work of UNRWA. It's not a secret. Huh? It's not a secret. What I'm saying that allegations are allegations. And the first year of the law school, in the first year of law school, you are being taught that if someone is making an accusation, it's up to him to prove it. Not the accused, but the accuser. And by the time being, I haven't received any proof of this allegation. Maybe it's true, maybe not. But the fact that since there is an allegation, people have to blindly believe the allegation is against the elementary basis of law. And we are preaching all the time the rule of law. Well, I think I'm not going to be accused of anti-Semitism for doing that. But that's evident. That's evident. In spite of that, UNRWA has taken tough measures. But if Palestinian lives matters, and certainly matters, then we have to provide assistance. They have to provide assistance. And about the story of, look, I don't pretend to be in charge of the foreign policy of the US. I have enough with the foreign policy of the European Union. But let's be logical. How many times have you heard the most prominent leaders and foreign ministers around the world saying, too many people are being killed? President Biden said this is too much on the top. It's not proportional. Well, if you believe that too many people are being killed, maybe you should provide less arms in order to prevent so many people being killed. It's not logical? And in 2006, in the war against Lebanon, the US already took this decision. They already took the decision to pause the supply of arms to Israel because Israel didn't want to stop the war. Exactly the same thing that happens today. Everybody goes to Tel Aviv begging, please, don't do that. Protect civilians. Don't kill so many. How many is too many? Which is the standard? But Netanyahu doesn't listen to anyone. They are going to evacuate. Where? To the moon? Where are they going to evacuate these people? So if the international community believes that this is a slaughter, that too many people are being killed, maybe they have to think about the provision of arms. And by the way, today a court in Netherlands has ordered to the government to stop exporting the spare parts of the F-35 fighters to Israel in order to be sure that the International Court of Justice rule is being implemented. So I don't know, every member state is the owner of its foreign policy, but it's a little bit contradictory to continue saying that there are too many people being killed, please take care of people, please don't kill so many. Stop saying please and doing something.
Okay, I think, Minister Gennez.
Well, the Belgian presidency wants to be an honest broker, and I think that's the role we play today. We discussed with all member states in a good atmosphere. And as a minister, I entered only more than a year ago, but I tend to discuss upon facts, and that's what I will continue to do so. And when I see serious infractions on international humanitarian law, I will speak out. And when I see that infrastructure paid by the international community on the West Bank in Gaza has been demolished, I will speak up. And I think that's our obligation to do so, being a minister, and also to bring the discussions to the table inside the European Union.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.